Hi, everybody. Welcome back to On the DL. We have a special guest today. I always say special when it is somebody who is a fellow TV sister. And this is somebody who I have wanted to connect with and speak to for a very long time. Farah Nasser joins us today. Hi, Farah.
Hi, Dana. Thanks so much for having me on.
It's so great to see you. I know through these Zoom calls, it still feels impersonal, but I do feel like we are sitting and chatting and having a conversation rather than seeing you through my TV. So that's really nice.
Yeah, it'll be nice to do it in person one day.
Yes, it's been a really long time. I
Mm.
think the last time I saw you was a TIFF party in 2019. Is
Yes,
that the
yes, I
last
remember
time we
that
saw?
too. Yeah, we have a very good mutual friend.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And we of course know all the same people. It's a small industry, of course. And I should tell everyone, of course, if you don't know who Farah is, I'm sure you do by now because she really is one of the most recognizable faces in Toronto, particularly in television news. Farah is the anchor for Global News, 5:30 and 6 o'clock, but you also do national, which
Right.
I
Yeah. Yeah. I've
really
been filling in.
enjoy. Every
Yeah.
Friday,
Great.
correct?
Every Friday I'm on national. Yeah, I'm the backfill for Donna Friesen. She's taking some time off in the summer. So I'm excited to get a few weeks in there on the national desk.
And what does that feel like when you go from local to national? What's that
Oh,
buzz?
it is, it's so funny because this is such a question that you'd ask being in television because you've done this. Like it's a different kind of feel. It's more of a network feel. And you really have to uh we're so used to covering this kind of Toronto bubble we're in, right? And you have to really think outside the box, even the way you pronounce things, it's not Saskatchewan, it's more Saskatchewan, things like that. Yeah. So, they're little tiny things, but they're important to the people who live there, and they expect you to get it right, which is I totally understand. And then it's just looking at things from more of a national perspective, right? So more of the context, more of the nuance that maybe we don't get into on the local show. But it's a lot of fun. It's like an education every time, and I just love it.
I have to say, I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy for you. When I saw you and when I heard you started to do the national, I felt like, yes, yes,
Thank you.
this is what Farah should be doing. And I say everything, I let it all out here on the DL. When you came on the scene, on the new scene, I remember there was really only a few, particularly women, in the last probably decade or so that came on scene, and I said, that one, that one, that one, and that one.
This,
I
um,
was right. I have a great eye. I have such a good eye for talent. I should go into some kind of
I'm
producing.
honored.
But all three of the women that I had, actually, there's four of them. All four of them have gone on to do incredible things, and you were one of them.
Oh, that means so. I literally have goosebumps right now.
I'm telling you the
That
truth.
means so much
So,
coming from you. It truly does.
and I'm happy that makes you feel that way because that's why I'm so happy to connect with you because I know how authentic you are and what you bring to each conversation and what you bring to your work is raw and it's real. And you bring a part of you every time you are on air. And that is not the norm with most people, particularly in news. People shut it down, they close off, they become a different persona. It's how they get through. Sometimes we call it desensitizing. We go into or we become this other role to get through some of the work that we're experiencing off camera to report on camera. But I don't get that from you. There's a humility, there is a lovableness, and this realness from you every single time. It doesn't matter if it's a digital series, if it's a video you've put out on Twitter, if it's anchoring the news, or your TED Talk, which we're going to talk about, it's all real. And I want to ask you how you keep it that way.
First of all, I think you're going to start by making me cry. Like
Great.
you're being so generous in what you're saying, and I'm extremely grateful for it because I very much value your opinion. So thank you for saying that. And
Yeah.
it's really, and as you know, I mean, you're the same way. Authenticity is I mean, it's the biggest compliment, right? When somebody tells you that they feel that you're real, because that's what you are. And, people will see what they want to see, but I think you and I kind of both wear our feelings on our sleeve in a way. And it's challenging. It's very challenging, especially when you're, covering a newscast and covering a story that's really difficult to tell, or, kind of straddling the line between showing what's out there and what some say that you're doing is activism, right? So I've been accused of activism in terms of journalism. And to me, it's not activism to put a mirror to society and say, this stuff is happening. A lot of the work I did in terms of race, even the TED Talk, that kind of stuff, it was before this whole racial reckoning we had, right? And there was, I received so much hate mail, but there was even people in our industry who were saying, well, she's being an activist and she's trying to push an agenda. And to me, it's not an agenda. Equality is not an agenda. Equity is not an agenda, and so that part has been, and it still is, in many ways, in some of the stories that I cover, I still find it challenging because to me, it's real, it's authentic, it's real, and it's people's experiences. It's what's happening out there.
Right.
So it's been challenging. It is challenging, but it's the only way to be. I don't know how it would be any other way.
And I hear you. I absolutely hear you. And I empathize with that because I went through that myself, but I had lots of challenges being myself. This is where I'm myself. So I found my space and my platform to be able to speak and have the conversations I wanted. I'll get into that in a second, but you touched upon a racial awakening and a reckoning even. And it's one of my points here that I wanted to speak to you about 100%. So I do want to talk about that because I do feel that you really did start this. You created this pathway for journalists, for TV personalities to have a voice and to start speaking up before it was even a thing. So before we talk about that, I do want to read a little bit of your bio, if I may. Is that okay?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So people, if they're listening and watching, going, okay, I know who Farah is. Of course I know Farah, but it's just let's just talk a little bit about your career. So Farah began her career with Rogers TV before accepting a position with News Talk 10. Did I say 10? News Talk 1010. See, it almost feels like it's so in the past now. Farah went on to hold various roles with Toronto 1, remember that? 8 Channel News, City TV, and CP24 before joining Global News. She's a graduate of Ryerson University's Radio and Television Arts program. Me too. She also attended the University of Westminster in London, England. Wow. And later interned for CNN in New Delhi, India. Wow. Wow. Okay. When not reporting on the day's headline, Nasser spends her time volunteering in the community. She serves as a mentor for Civic Action, a nonprofit that brings together senior and emerging leaders from diverse backgrounds. That's amazing. Wow. And I know you do a lot of other volunteering and you're involved with the Aga Khan Foundation as well. Very involved there. So let's talk a little bit about, first tell me how your family's doing. I want to know how everyone's doing.
I just like you, it's day by day, right? And we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, thank God.
Yes.
But like everyone else, it's been a struggle. So we have an at-home camp happening right now with some other kids. So at least there's some socialization happening, and it's weird. I feel like there's this part of me that kind of will miss this togetherness of just the four of us, being together and being forced to be together. But at the same time, I know that my kids need that time with their friends and socialization and all that stuff. So
how old are the kids now?
5 and 8.
Little people.
They are. And I forget sometimes, like I guess maybe it's just because it's been the four of us. Like sometimes I act like my kid is an adult. Like the way I speak to him, the way he speaks to me, and I have to remember, I'm like, he's only 8.
Yeah, but it goes fast. It goes fast.
It does, right?
I'm telling you.
I'm holding on tight, Dana. I'm holding on so tight.
I feel like I keep saying I have become that woman where, as I grew up in the industry, right? I had babies and I got divorced and then fell in love and remarried and blended and all. And I remember speaking to women who were I don't know, 5 years ahead of me, maybe even 10 years ahead of me. And I would think, oh, I can't even fathom having teenagers. I can't even fathom being that age,
Yeah.
that age. And here I am, that age, and I have teens, and I gotta say, it's pretty damn good. It's good.
Really? Okay,
Yeah, you
good.
got a lot to look forward to.
Why? Because I feel like this age, like even the 5-year old, like just uh, that kind of free spiritness that these kids have, that they don't even like. My daughter seems to think that there's like a movie filming all the time in our house, so
Oh, I
she's
love
always,
that.
we're on camera, we're on camera, be careful, they can hear it. Like she thinks it's all, and then she does a musical, interlude, and it's just, that kind of thinking where when they get older it kind of stops. So I just stare at her in awe, and I'm just so in love with, both of them, and I wonder what's going to be like when they're older and they're not like this.
Well, they feel the love. The love is just different, you know? But for your daughter, having that awareness and openness to be able to, be so free, I
Mm.
also feel like that comes from an environment, right? That comes from how you're raised and how your parents feel about themselves. And I'm going to segue that because I think it ties in really nicely to, you speak of an experience in a playground when you were 6 years old. And you talk about this in your digital series, The First Time I Was Called.
Mm.
And when I heard that, I just got chills just saying it again. I feel like bawling my eyes out. It makes me sick, like absolutely sick, that you would be, I'm going to say tormented, to be called something so disgusting and had such a racial undertone and slur, that it seems as if, thank goodness for your beautiful daughter, that she can be so free and love herself enough at 5, almost 6, to run around and dance and sing and want to be on camera. Whereas you, as a 6-year-old, probably didn't feel that way after your playground experience.
No, and I think the other thing, it's funny, we did this series talking about, it was called First Time I Was Called. So first time you were called a negative slur. And everybody who we interviewed had such a visceral reaction to the first time they were called something, because you can't change it about yourself. And I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't think about that time until we did that series, Dana. And then I mentioned it to Makai Taggart, my news director, and he was like, "You still remember that?" And I said to him, "Yeah, you never forget that kind of thing." And then we went through this kind of, and it was so painful the first time I was talking to him about it. Like, it was like I felt like crying. And then I feel like through this series I've kind of worked through it. It was almost therapeutic, or it's hard to explain, but like, because everybody else went through that too, and I didn't feel like it was kind of crazy that I was still thinking about this experience from when I was little. Like, it was really interesting, and it just goes to show how these kind of moments impact you, and change your self-esteem and who you are, and have these effects. But I have to say, Dana, my daughter, even though we have this Crayola crayon set that has all the skin colors of the rainbow, like any skin color you want to make, and I am so you know I raise my children with this idea, like you do, like we all do, in terms of color doesn't matter, it's what's inside, that kind of thing. But my daughter will still say to me, Dana, "Oh, the blonde hair girl is the pretty one in the book. I want to be the blonde hair girl. I want to be the white girl." She'll still say that. Even though she doesn't have the same experience as me, even though I work so hard to make sure the content she consumes on media, like on Netflix, on that kind of thing, the stuff she colors, the color, everything. I've her Barbies are brown, you know what I mean? But it doesn't matter. It's hard. It's really hard.
We did not have brown Barbies growing up. Did you have a brown Barbie growing up?
No, I barely had Barbies. I mean, my parents couldn't afford them, but yeah, we definitely didn't have brown Barbies, and I'm glad that at least there is that, and we can have that conversation. So when she says that to me, I'm like, well, why do you think like that? What about this Barbie, or what about this doll, or what about this princess, or whatever, and we can have this conversation. But it's really, I hope things change for when she's older, and when she has kids, things have.
I hope so too. I definitely hope so too. I feel like what our children's generation, particularly my kids, I have seen such a massive difference, is gender equality. not racial equality. We're not there yet. We're not even close,
You
obviously.
make such a good point.
But the gender equality was such a biggie for me, being a single mom with two boys. It was very important for me that my boys were raised with a strong female influence in their home, that they could see that mom could do anything and girls can do anything. And when Run Like a Girl came out, Run Like a Girl campaign came out, my son said, I don't understand. Like, he didn't get, what do you mean run like a girl? Like, he didn't understand what it meant to run like a girl. He didn't understand there was a difference. And I thought, oh my God, I'm doing something right. Now my job, even as they get older, as they are going through their teen years, is to continually have conversations about racialized communities, marginalized people. And we talk about this, I would say, 4 to 5 times a week. It's a huge conversation in our house because they have friends from every walk of life that look like every person or people that you can think of. I made a conscious decision to move into a community where the elementary school has been deemed at the Toronto District School Board called the United Nations. I made a conscious decision to live here for that elementary school. And so it's very important to me. But as a white woman, I have a lot of responsibility and a lot of work to do. And so I look to people like you who create series. The first time I was called, Living in Color, giving your TED Talk, to really raise awareness as to what I can do and what other people need to hear to take, even if it's just a few steps right now. Because I don't know if you agree with me, I think the world's gone to a very bad place.
Definitely.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And I think you're right. I think there is a huge responsibility. And it's not just you. I mean, for me, like when I think about how our Indigenous people had been treated. And I had a moment last week, Dana, where I was watching an interview with a residential school survivor on another network while I was doing my makeup, and I just started to cry. And it was out of embarrassment. I was embarrassed that I haven't covered this story the way I should have covered. For 20 years, we've been in the industry for so long. How did we not read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report and the recommendations? Why am I reading them now? I mean, it just, to me, it's such an, and especially with the work that I do in this space, I was so angry at myself and embarrassed for how now we're paying attention to this and how we haven't for so long, even with our Black communities. In the past few years, I've had some amazing influences and friends who have really shown me what that experience is like, and have really schooled me on things, and even things I've said wrong, and have called me to task, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
And it's been, so for that, even I have a lot of work to do in that space as well with other BIPOC communities. But yeah, the world is bonkers.
The world is bonkers. The world is bonkers. And I feel like it is, I take it very seriously. I have always lived by this saying in news: when in doubt, leave it out. Right? You don't know, don't say it. So yeah. I don't want to say that I haven't gone silent, but I try not to say things so socially, particularly on social channels, Twitter, Instagram. If I don't know it, I'm not saying it. No one cares about my opinion. I'm not living it. It's not my experience. So I feel like it's people who are front and center, who can lend their voice, like yourself, that are doing really good work. And when I watched the series, or part of First Time I Was Called, I don't know how to say this without saying it. I wasn't shocked. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Do you feel comfortable talking about your experience in that playground?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I was on these red monkey bars. I was 6. I was at a school that was very, very white. That, I was in Mississauga in the 80s when there was, not a lot of people who were of diverse backgrounds, a very different place. And I was in a public school that was not diverse at all. And I wanted to use the monkey bars, and a kid wanted to use them too and called me the P word for South Asians. And I remember being frozen. And I have a really bad memory in terms of my childhood. I had a great childhood, amazing childhood, but I mean, as you know, when you get older, you know, your brain doesn't have room for a lot of things, but that one is clear as day.
Yes.
And it's something that, yeah, that kind of stayed with me. And you know, what's interesting is I think I internalized it, and I'm sure there were other instances like it that I internalized. And as I grew up, and I remember trying to assimilate when I got into like News Talk 1010, or when I was trying to Rogers and these kind of things, I wanted to be more, I was kind of like, not, I didn't want to be more white or anything, but I wanted to just fit in, right? So I kind of hid my culture, you know, you know, people would ask me, are you gonna have an arranged marriage? And I'd be like, no. And, you know, it would be kind of, whenever they want to talk about stuff, you know, it was almost like I doubled down on the fact that I fit in. I'm Canadian too. I celebrate Christmas. We do all this stuff. You know, it was kind of this feeling that several moments led up, and then you get into this industry where, as you know, back then when I started, you'd been there for a few years before me, but it wasn't it wasn't very multicultural. So especially that station where I worked at, and it was just really this trying to fit in and feeling like you don't belong. And I think it stemmed from a lot of experiences I had along the way. And it came to a point where, you know, maybe 10 years ago, I realized, like, this is silly. You know, why do I feel like this? Of course I fit in. I belong. I deserve to be here. I just had this feeling, this imposter syndrome, that they were going to figure me out, and they were going to figure out I was a brown girl, and they were going to kick me out or something, or realize, you know, you shouldn't be in this industry, you know? And I think, yeah.
Now where you're at Global, I would say it's a beautiful representation of community in our country. It's changed a lot. And I love watching it. I do. I love the people there. But I love it. It's changed. I remember watching Global growing up, and it was as white as can be.
And we've worked hard, Dana. Like, we have worked hard. And I think that's, I mean, we've like, you know, I watch newscasts from other networks, like other stations and other small markets, to try to find reporters that can be representative of what Canada is. You know, like it's not an easy job, especially when you have a job posting and you're trying to find all these diverse candidates, and sometimes you don't get them. You have to go out and look for diverse candidates. You have to get representation with what fits. And people will say, well, that's, you know, you should be hiring the best person and that kind of thing. But right now, the best person is not just the person with the most experience. It's the person that also has the life experience, right? Mm-hmm. That's able to tell these stories.
That's right.
And you have to seek that out sometimes.
So that is a very good point, because lived experience, right, what you bring to your work and to your job, whatever the industry may be, is crucial now, because it does give people an edge of empathy. It will hopefully bring some kindness, which you talk about very openly. I love when you say that the art of asking questions is doing your research. Like, oh God, I hope Farah thinks I've done my research, because I really hope she thinks that this is a good interview. Because, you know, I'm thinking, oh my God, I hope so. The pressure from one of my peers. That segues to your TED Talk when you talk about one of your colleagues. So tell me a little bit about your TED Talk. I don't want to talk about it. I want you to talk about it, because, wow.
Thank you. You know, I guess it stemmed from, my parents always taught us, like, my brother's a journalist as well, and my parents always taught us that people are a resource of information. Just like you go to the library and you take out a book and you read and you research, you can research by talking to people. Like, their experience matters. And it's not just what you see in terms of the person. There's always something behind the story, you know, that they may or may not tell you, right? That leads up to this moment. And so I think that kind of got into my head, and I thought, you know, we're not getting to know each other. We're just kind of shutting each other down. We're not really understanding each other. So I had this colleague when I started at Global. And again, when I started at Global, it was not diverse. I mean, there was many times every day I was in a meeting and I was maybe one there was another woman who was a Black woman who was there part-time, but I was the only one who was there, you know, full-time in these editorial meetings. And sometimes I'd make comments about things, and people didn't understand. Like, they didn't have that lived experience. So they all, you know, were like, is this really a story? And I'm like, yeah, it's a story. But again, when you don't have that lived experience, of course you don't think, you know, it's a story. So there was one person who was really, you could tell, disturbed by all these pitches I had about, you know, the racialized experience in Toronto, and kept thinking I was making things not making things up, but just, you know, looking at things in a negative lens, when maybe the intention wasn't always negative from the people who were kind of making people feel marginalized. And it was and this person had a very different political ideology than me, and so I was very disturbed by this person and how they were reacting. Like, it was openly like, oh, when I would, you know, or eye rolls or things like that when I would make pitches and meetings. Yeah. So eventually I was having a really bad day, and I looked at my phone during the meeting, and you could tell I'm having a bad day when I don't speak in a meeting, because I'm usually very vocal. And the person asked me how I was doing, and I was shocked. I'm like, why does this person care about me? They're mean to me every day. Like, why do they care? And I realized in that moment that maybe, you know, there's a person inside. And I kind of remember what my parents had taught me, those values of like, you know, everybody has their own journey and everybody has their own thing going on. You can't judge people. There's a reason behind everything. So I invited the person out to lunch, and it was a very awkward lunch, Dana. He thought I had a wire, and I was like recording everything he said and was going to like tell HR or something. But I said, I don't. And we were very open. And he told me about, you know, his political ideology and, you know, why he believed in Trump and that kind of thing. And I talked about mine, and we really connected, and it was really interesting. And then when a story would happen and I needed to understand the other perspective that I didn't have the perspective on, I went to him and I'm like, why are people doing this? Why do they think like this? And it was really fascinating to understand the point of view from somebody that I would not hear from my circle, right? Or maybe people felt this way, but didn't have the guts to tell me how they felt, right? So it was
very important.
Totally.
So important. That's such a huge message, right? Like, when you say in your TED Talk, don't just surround yourself with people who are like-minded.
Yes.
Get out there, have conversations with people who are different than you, who don't think like you, which is really important, right? And hard, and particularly this past year and a half, right? People have been obviously bubbled, isolated, and as they start to come out of that, we've all tried to insulate ourselves with like-minded people, because it's what's made us feel better. The world went bananas.
Yeah.
Like, literally bananas, right? You brought up Trump and American politics and what's happening in the Middle East and what's happening in our country and COVID and mental health issues. It's like, it's never ending. And so that's what people generally as humans do, is we gravitate to our own. We want to be around people who think like us, who look like us, who conduct their lives like us. But I love when you say, just step out of that comfort zone for a bowl of noodles for lunch, or a coffee, or a conversation, or a Zoom call. If everybody did that once, can you imagine?
Yeah, I mean, and people were like, you're so idealistic, and you know, it's such a kumbaya attitude and things like that.
I love it.
But it's, you know, it's a simple thing to do. And you know, even if I have a family member who doesn't believe in COVID and doesn't believe in vaccines. And yeah, and I had to have a real conversation with her. She lives in Florida. And I had to understand why she didn't believe in it, because it was really driving me crazy. And the reason was because her business wasn't doing well and she was worried about the economic fallout. And there was there's a lot of people who are in that boat. You know, if you look at these protests and things that are happening, these people who are, there's a reason that they feel like that. They're scared, they're terrified, right? And some of them are losing their livelihood, some of them are losing their business. So they're taking it out on one thing. So again, there's always kind of a reason behind it. If you can kind of peel back the layers and understand, at least you won't hate the person or think they're an idiot. You know what I mean? You'll kind of have a bit more empathy towards that person. And I think we all need just a little bit more empathy.
So your TED Talk is called The Power of, tell me the name of it again.
Intellectual humility.
Okay, because I want people to be able to Google it and they'll be able to listen to it, because I think it's very, I've heard a lot of journalists speak, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the DL. I was so incredibly moved by it, because your experience is your experience, right? It's very specific. You know, you see people on television or wherever they may be, and they're glamorized, right? It's glamorous, like being a media personality, and you just don't think that people are going through what they go through. And I should know that from all people, and yet I'm listening to you and I'm mesmerized by you, by what you're saying, but yet it's you saying it. And I just think it's incredible. I've really listened to quite a few people and their TED Talks, and they're not like yours.
Thank you.
It's really amazing. And I know you said that the colleague that you spoke about during your TED Talk helped you. So you guys,
yeah, we worked on it. Yeah. So I went through because I mean, he had to be okay with me telling his story, and he was totally fine. He was actually really touched that I would consider doing that. I mean, wow. He was, really, you want to tell, you know, and I thought, whoa, like, you really, you're of course, this is great, you know. And in the end, yeah, I practiced with him. We worked on the ending together. It was, yeah, he gave me the last line. Like, it was a really great moment. Now he no longer works with us. We've had cuts at
he's not there anymore?
No, he's not there anymore.
Oh, it's a shame.
Yeah, but it's still a lesson that I learned in my life about how somebody that's so different from you, how you can kind of connect with them, and how they're stuck. And again, it was a good reminder of these values that I learned when I was a kid, like how there's always something happening behind the scenes or inside Dana, and we don't know it all, right? And that's, I think, that's why I like that title, Intellectual Humility. We don't know it all. We come to situations where we think we know everything. We don't. As you said, we both have so much learning to do in so many areas, right? Like this idea of lifelong learning. And I think we all have to kind of be okay with being don't know it alls. So,
you know, every conversation I have on the DL, I try to give a little bit of myself. I try to share a little bit. That was, you know, the premise of creating this show, is that I wanted to find a platform where I could have these conversations. Like you said, it's really diving into these conversations where people aren't hearing it on TV or on radio or wherever, because those sound bites or that part of the conversation gets cut, right? You only get 2 seconds or 10 seconds. And it was always that good stuff. It was that meaty stuff.
Totally.
Conversations that people weren't hearing. And I would always say, well, wait, you know how I got that person to talk about it? Was that I told them a little bit about me. And, you know, the news director at the time or producer, oh, that's nice. And then it would just, you know, that part of the interview would just be on the floor or in the garbage, right? So I thought there had to be a space where I can share a little bit of myself, because I know when I do, I have an incredible conversation. Every single episode I have done on this show has been incredible because I've given a little. And so I want to give a little and tell you a little bit about my experience, because I think you're probably going to say, what the fuck is she talking about? But here goes.
Okay.
It's true. So you look at me and you think, okay, white woman, Canadian, she got it all, grew up in Toronto, it's on TV, she looks the part, all of that. But the truth is, I grew up, even though, like you, beautiful childhood, beautiful family, I felt unsafe.
Hmm.
I knew that going out into the big bad world, I had to be cautious about my religion and who I told. I never talk about it. Last week, I had reposted something that had to do with an Israeli soldier getting married, and I lost a ton of followers.
Hmm.
I just saw them just click, 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 bye, bye, bye. So anti-Semitism is very real, very real. Uh, and the first month that I was at my television job, I don't want to say where,
Mhm.
I was questioned about my religion, like
Wow.
as if I was lying.
What do you mean? What do you mean, like questioned?
I was asked, I needed to take a day off because it was a high holy day for me. And my boss at the time said, what? What are you talking about? That doesn't apply to you. Wait, no, it does. Oh, I mean your husband? I'm like, no, me. I need to take the day off. I need to go to synagogue with my family. I am somewhat religious. And he was like, well, you're going to have to go through human resources and you're going to have to explain to them like how that is. And then he said the dreaded word, which I really have had my whole life, which is I bet you will know. As soon as I say it, you're going to say, oh yeah, and you're going to roll your eyes, which is, this is the look I get. But you don't look Jewish.
Oh God.
What it are both your parents Jewish? Uh, are your grandparents?
Oh,
Are you like pure? These are the things that I would get. Up until very recently, I got that. And it pained me so terribly that when I went for my first real TV interview, I was actually told that I wasn't ethnic enough. And I thought, oh, good, okay, because here I thought I was, great. I didn't get the job. I never worked at that station anyway. But I thought, great. And then when I did start working in, the big, huge company, they did embrace me as a person who could bring something to the table that wasn't there in local news. Maybe you could enlighten us and explain some things to us. Maybe you could go report on this. Or when there were anti-Semitic stories, i.e. an attack, could you get into the community? And so I tried to bring that to the table, but there were eye rolls. There were smirks. I always felt different. What do you mean you don't celebrate Christmas? Your kids don't have Christmas? Like, no, my kids don't celebrate Christmas. Not even like a tree? No, not even a tree. You don't give them presents to Christmas morning? No, we don't celebrate Christmas. Oh, like people just think I'm bizarre. So even though I look like everybody else, let's say, who quote is part of the major fold of
mhm.
this, of the fabric of this country, I share with you that I had pain too. And that a lot of people don't talk about it and don't talk about anti-Semitism in a way that's very painful and so fearful. And I'm trying very hard as a mother and a woman in media to do my part to raise awareness about inclusivity. I want us to be inclusive. I want all of our cultures to work together
Mhm.
and to understand each other and not just how we look. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And I think, I mean, we're dealing with um, Islamophobia right now, right?
Terrible.
Which, yeah, I mean,
Beyond.
it's been fatal, right? Like in Quebec, and I don't even know if it was taken seriously after Quebec, right? And then this happened. this happened recently, and I think that really caught a lot of people's attention. But I agree with you. I think newsrooms have a lot of work to do, and I think it's been a journey. And I think last year's racial reckoning was like this big eye-opening moment. I mean, you saw how public people were going about different organizations, right? About what was happening behind the scenes in these organizations. I mean, it's still, and people not understanding even microaggressions, like you said, right? Like about the Christmas thing, and making you kind of feel bad, or like the other, or, like the same guy who, one of the first conversations we had, he was like, your kids play hockey? Your son plays hockey? That's weird. Hockey? Your kid? Like, and
oh my God.
Yeah, my kid plays hockey. My husband plays hockey. But that, like, do they look like, what happens when you go in the rink? Is everyone like, what are you doing here?
No.
Yeah. And I said, no. I go, my kid plays at Don Mills. Like, everyone's athletic. You know what I mean? The whole team is diverse. Like, it's amazing, actually. And he was shocked. He was really shocked. And it's a little thing, right? But it's, even when people are like, you ski? You know how to ski? Yeah, I know how to ski. I'm a pretty good skier. And you skate? Like winter sports that are not, yeah, oh yeah. And, once at 2-4, the meteorologist said to me, he said, you're, what did he say? Oh, I said, talking about how cold I was because it was a winter day. And he said, well, if you're a real Canadian, you wouldn't be cold. On air, and nothing was done about it.
On air?
Yeah, on air.
Did you get in trouble?
No, nobody said anything.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so like these are little microaggressions, but they're really hurtful. And I called that person out on it, and I said, what the hell does that mean? I'm not Canadian? What are you talking about, right? And so just because I get cold in the winter before the summer, and but it's
I get cold. I'm freezing cold too. So
thank you. So it's just it's very much these little things. And it's not just these things that are brought up that bother me. It's that other people in the newsrooms don't speak up when things like this are brought up, right? And I think that needs to change. I think that, you're always gonna have people who are gonna think a certain way and whatever, but there's people who are kind of in the middle there who listen to this and will just keep doing their work. Now, when I listen to this, I will speak up for that person.
That's amazing.
And I will make it uncomfortable, and I will make everybody mad at me, and ruin a meeting if I have to. But I think every time we do that a little by little, I think it'll make change. I really do.
I do, and I think it's also very important for our children to understand too that multiculturalism is beautiful. It's beautiful, and that is a part of our country that makes us different and incredible. And I mean, my kids know that, right? Like they've asked me many times, why didn't we move to the States? One of my sisters lives in Los Angeles. Given the industry that we're in, I always thought when my kids were very young that I was just going to leave and move to New York because I just didn't see myself staying here and working. But I did. I ended up staying here and working. And so I'm so glad that we don't live there. I'm so glad that we live here. And I'm so glad that there are people like you who have a voice, that you use your platforms to bring attention and awareness to really what is going on. I know you can't do that in every story, every night of the news, but you do it all the time. And you've been doing it, like I said, before it was a thing, right? You've been doing it. So that's why I love that authenticity about you, and that it's so raw because you bring so much of yourself to the table. And I think that's incredible. And I've never talked about this before. Not on the DL, not ever, but I thought
I've talked about this, but not in a public
right.
forum.
And I've never talked about feeling discriminated against in a workplace. I mean, I was called a princess. I'm like, what the hell was that? I was so angry because of all places where I'm not acting like a spoiled brat. It's not work. And then when this person called me a princess, it was absolutely religion, race based. Like it was absolutely based on that old, terrible, ugly stereotype that I'm a princess. And I was like, I was so mad. And it was very recently, and it was from a manager. Can you believe?
Yeah, no, I can believe it, which is
Yeah,
sad. You know,
terrible.
and there'll be people who, someone recently said to me, oh, there's so much outrage. Everybody's outraged. And, this identity politics is there's too much identity politics, in my opinion. And in my head, I was like, but you're a white guy. Yeah. Like,
Right.
of course you're not outraged. Of course you think there's too much identity politics, because it doesn't concern you. Like, it's all this time. Of course there's outrage, just being built up outrage for decades, like, there's reason to be outraged. There's real issues that we need to change. Like, it's not faux. It's actually real.
It's not faux.
Yeah, like, yeah. And so it really, like, I like that you said in our conversation, like, you have a lot of learning to do. And I think we all, no matter what background you are, we all have learning to do about different backgrounds and different communities. And why would you make someone feel bad about themselves? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I don't understand.
Well, those are small people that come from, I don't care how big their house is, they come from a small space.
Right.
And that's where their head is. That's where they live. They live in a small space. Mm-hmm. And so they can continue to live that way and put their head down on their little tiny pillow at night because they have to live with themselves. Right.
Yeah.
We can only make changes. But I ask of you, what do you think? So what is your opinion of, like, say someone like me? I don't want to say middle-aged, but I guess I'm middle-aged, because how old do you live till now? No, I'm serious. Like, what is considered middle-aged? I don't even know what it is anymore, but I don't even know. But I'm a white woman. Will I be on TV ever again? Like, is there a space for someone who looks like me ever again? I don't know. I don't know what the future is. It's very hard to say.
I think that with everything, like with Me Too, with the racial reckoning, with all this stuff, it's like the pendulum swings so far.
I know, it's too
to
much.
Kind of get somewhere in the middle. And I think we are at that pendulum swinging.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, I think we are right there. I think things are going to come back slowly, but I think we have to remember, like, change comes from the top, right? And right now at the tippy top, Dana, everyone in every organization is, almost everyone right at the top, if you look at all the networks, is white, mostly male. CBC, it's a lot of females, but white. And these changes are coming, and they're coming slow. And I think until we have these nuanced conversations and things are able to kind of come down, I don't think there's going to be real change. Like, I think right now what we're doing is we're kind of changing the forward face of everything, right? We're getting reporters who are ethnic, we're getting, producers, but I think it really has to come from the top. And I think that's happening, but it's just a work in progress. And I think it's going to take a while, but I think there should be a space for everybody. Like, I don't think that it has to be, I don't think that it's just like, well, everybody has to be, BIPOC now in different communities. I think we all have a voice. I think we all have lived experience. I think we all can add to the fabric of this country and of this community and these conversations. I just think that right now we've had it one way for so long, and we're trying to make fast change, and that's why things are kind of going the way that they are, right?
So I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I appreciate you being honest about that. Can I share a personal story about us?
Yes.
So we were talking about Trump and we're talking about politics, but I want to tell everybody the time that I reached out to you, you were covering arguably the biggest election in a generation, Trump. You're in Washington. And I'm following you like every second. I'm on your Instagram, on your stories, like every minute of the day. I'm on your tweets. And there was something about what you were living through, what you were going through, that to me, I felt right through my phone, and I had to reach out to you. And let me just preface by telling you.
Goosebumps again. I know what you're going to say. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Farah and I we have mutual friends. We have never hung out together alone. We are not like, we would never not say hi to each other, but we've never spoken on the phone. We're friendly, but I just want people to understand that this is a real story. So I'm feeling this through the phone, like feeling you through your experience. And I had to reach out to you because I knew exactly how you were feeling. You're out there covering the biggest story. You are doing a kick-ass job. You know in your heart, this is it. Like you have worked so hard in your career. The honor of being placed in that position to report on that information is it. Like it, I don't know what gets better, but it's huge. And you know that. And yet the other side is you're a mother, you are a wife, your heart is with your children on FaceTime, and you're trying to balance it all. So I reached out to you because I felt it and I wanted you to know that I thought you were doing an incredible job. And I had been there and I know what it's like to leave kids that are young. Um, and we just had this really beautiful exchange where you didn't even like write like, hey, how's it going? Like, thanks for reaching out. You got right into it. You're like, so da 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 da.
That's
So,
so hard. Yeah.
like, so they're gonna be okay, right? Like I'm doing the right thing, right? Like I love that we had that
Yeah.
experience.
But because I knew you were actually like, you kind of like, I was like falling and you were just like there. You know what I mean? You're like, it's fine. Get back up. You're okay. It's going to be all right. The kids will be all right. Everything will be all right. And you're right. Like we haven't had this like, this long friendship in terms of like, we've had mutual friends and we're friendly, but it was crazy how I felt comfortable just being like, and you were kind of my saving grace. Like I was just like, what's happening? I hope I can't feel like this is just going to be okay, and it was, so thank you for that.
Of course.
Thank you for being there. What I really, really needed you because it was really challenging. And we had to quarantine on the back end. Remember coming back? Like it was a long time away from the kids, and I had done everything I could. Like I wrote love notes for them like every day. Every day they got a new toy or can't. Like I did everything beforehand. I planned everything, and it was still so hard. Hard. It was so hard. But they're proud of me, right? Like they're proud of me, and it was. And I'm seeing that now as they get older, these little moments where they're learning. And my daughter is just like, you ask her what she wants to be. And she's like, I want to be a businesswoman. I want to be a boss, like she's just, she's like, I want to be a builder and build homes. And like, she just has these big, like, it's not just, I want to work here. I want to like be the top person at this organization, and it's pretty cool to hear, because I never would have spoken like that with my mom, even though my mom was an executive. I didn't have that. I don't think I had that confidence of thinking, no, I'm going to be the top one day. I'm still shocked at the job I have. So, for her to have that conversation, it's really touching.
And when you came home from your experience reporting on that election, I call it the election, what was that like for you? Did you feel professionally that this was really something that you had hit? Like this was really quite magical?
Yeah, it was. It was an incredible experience. And, everyone in the field. So we have this kind of like elite team of journalists that travel everywhere. Every time there's a big story, you have this like group of global journalists. I'm sure CTV has that too. And they've traveled the world together. And Donna Friesman was there. And it was like, so I was this kind of like new person coming in and hearing all their cool stories and talking. And they said, when you go back to local news now, it's going to be a little hard because you've covered this huge story and then you're going to go back and you're going to say, oh, we're still, and so for a little while, it was really hard. I was like, I want to go to London. I want to go to New York. I want to go, it was very hard to kind of get back in my head. Like, okay, well, this is my job, that was really cool. And I won't trade it in for anything. And I can't wait to have another experience like this. But
you did a great job. Did a great job. Great. And covering it on all your social channels too, kept people so engaged, which I loved. And again, you brought yourself to it, right? You saw that there's a mom there. Yeah. That is trying to do the very best, bring us the news and still be a real person. Mm-hmm. And that's what you are, Farah. And I love that about you. I love that you talk so openly when people ask, because it's important. It's important not just to have that persona, right? And that's like, you make my jobs. It makes me so happy that we've had this conversation because I love connecting with TV people. We can't do this anywhere else, right?
Yeah. No,
there's nowhere else we can do this. And this was part of why I wanted to do this so badly. I wanted to connect with so many people that I well, first I wasn't allowed to do, but just be able to do, you know?
Yeah, you've done such a good job with this podcast too, because as you said, you know, I didn't think about it in those terms, but you're right. When we do these big interviews, we open up a little bit, we give a little bit, and then that person is able to open up a little bit, right? And I never actually put it I never thought about it in a conscious way, but you're so right, right? That's what makes this more of a conversation,
Right.
as opposed to kind of an interview. And
That's the
yeah,
premise of On the
I'm honored
DM.
you had me on. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so honored you came on. You must come back again and tell us how you're doing. Please tell everybody how they can find your digital series, find your TED Talk. I know there's always Google, but if there's somewhere, and then how can they connect with you?
So I think the best way probably is through social media to connect with me. My DMs, everything's open, but you could find on Global's website. So the one series we did was called First Time I Was Called. We interviewed a lot of really, you know, everyday Canadians, but also Canadians in powerful positions, like, you know, Jagmeet Singh. We had Israel Day, who's, you know, one of the chiefs in one of our First Nations. We had a lot of, you know, Kathleen Wynne talked about the first time she was called a slur based on her sexuality. So we had a lot of that. And then the series that I'm so in love with is this digital series that I did with Ali Wilson, my producer, called Living in Color. And this one is just so, I should probably share it more now, because it's everyday experiences of racialized Canadians, things you don't think about, like online dating, like, you know, workplaces, like, you know, being a medical professional, but also being somebody who's a Black doctor who's some patients don't even think is a doctor, you know, things that you don't think about when you're living your everyday life. But people who are from BIPOC communities, they have a very different experience. So we have tons of episodes of that that we've shot over several years.
And that can be found on Global's website as well.
Website. Okay. Just look at Living in Color.
Okay. And then your TED Talk, just Google it.
Yeah, and the TED Talk is called The Power of Intellectual Humility. I think it's probably in my bio on Instagram.
Watch it.
Yeah.
Watch it, people. Watch it, watch it, watch it. Excellent.
I'm so happy you like it, because I didn't really do it for like tons of views. I don't even think it's gotten tons of views. I just was like, this just seems like something we need to hear, we need to talk about. And I just really appreciate that you took the time to watch it and you enjoyed it.
I loved it. I watched it twice.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I watched it twice. I liked it so much. And I'll probably watch it again after this, because I do that. I go back and I want to make sure I touched on things. And yeah, it's part of my post research that I do. I do post research too, Farah. I do it all. So I want to say thank you to you. And I'm going to watch you, of course, and we can also catch you on the National, which is amazing. And that's just on Fridays for now.
That's Fridays for now, but in the summer, I'm filling in quite a few weeks. So the beginning of July and August, and I'll be there, yeah.
Before I let you go, I want, and thank you 10 times over, and what a joy this has been for me. I want to ask you one last question, which is, what are you hoping for in the next few years for yourself and community, and where you see things going? What are you hoping for?
I'm hoping that we see more change at the top in terms of management in media. I really hope that we see, and I think there's a push. I think it's going to happen. And I also hope it's not just BIPOC communities that have to tell, or even Jewish communities that have to tell these stories. I hope other journalists pick up these stories too and say, you know, this is not a community problem. This is a Canadian problem, right? This is a problem that affects all of us, you know? And I hope that, you know, just like we had 4 years of, you know, Trump and what happened before it that kind of brought issues to the surface, we've had this reckoning and we've kind of come to terms with things, and it's been very difficult. But I really hope that does lead to a better future. I hope these difficult conversations, like we saw with the Me Too movement also, you know, I hope these difficult, uncomfortable, very hard conversations really lead to systemic change, not just change now, change for future generations. And I think that's going to happen. Like, I really am an optimistic person. Like I know you are. And I think that we're going to see change. I think that it's just going to take some time, and there's going to be still some difficulty, but we'll get there. And I look forward to doing more national stories, maybe traveling more and covering the witnessing history, which is kind of what really drives me.
Amazing. And we're all going to be watching you. which is amazing.
you.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you so much. Have a great summer.
Thanks, Dana. You too. And hopefully we can catch up over patio.
Oh,
And
I
actually,
would love that. I would
yeah, we should
absolutely
do that.
love that.
Okay.
Thank you. Be
That's it.
well.
Thanks. You too. Bye.